Yo guys, what's going on? It's Rose here, bringing you guys the Week 2 Team Builder for our game against Muffins and his Muffins Mudkips. Super excited to play this guy. He's a pretty solid battler, and he's got a very scary team. I think it's funny that both of our first two games are both against Australians. I think they're just trying to, you know, just get him out of the way real quick, and you know what? That's totally fine. But go ahead, show some love to Muffins and the rest of the coaches down below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the matchup. If you guys missed our draft analysis and missed our week 1, which you shouldn't have, our team is Terra Iron Boulder, Cinderace, Zarude, Ursaluna Blood Moon, Latias, Diancie, Fortress, Aquatoros, Terra Drifblim, Swala, and Pincurchin, whereas Muffins has Iron Valiant, Terra Skeledirge, Noivern, Alolan Muck, Terra Arboliva, Lycanroc Dusk, Sandy Shocks, Metagross, Vaporeon, Scyther, and Hitmontop. Some big threats right out the gate. Iron Valiant is a huge issue. I mean, it always is. It just clicks fucking buttons no matter what, and that's not really going to change with our team. I'm expecting some sort of special or mixed variant of Iron Valiant this week. Terra Skeledirge could be a problem depending on the Terra type that he is, but it's very hard for something like Boulder to break through. Noivern could be a problem if he brings it. Choice Specs would be a huge issue for me to switch into. I don't really have a huge specially defensive wall on this team, other than something like Diancie. But yeah, no, Noivern could become a huge issue. Alolan Muck, I think, is coming. I think it really has a good matchup against me this week. Outside of Ursaluna, there's not a whole lot on my team that really is easily able to break through it. Terra Arboliva, I think it does come. I'm not sure exactly where he would kind of fit it in, but I do think Arboliva is pretty solid here. Lycanroc, it could come, it might not come. I think he's might be scared of Fortress and might not bring it. Sandy Shocks, I really don't know if I see coming. If he brings it, I think it would be like a lead spike or hazard, stacking set with like Volt Switch and something like that. Metagross, I think, does show up. I think it's a pretty solid Boulder switch in. Vaporeon, I think, shows up. Me and my front office were talking about potentially a Calm Mind set showing up with like Scald, Ice Beam, and Wish as a potential set that he brings this week. Scyther, I really don't see coming. Hitmontop, I think he could bring as like a hidden Intimidate / Rapid Spinner with like maybe an Assault Vest potentially, or the leftovers. But otherwise, I really don't know if Hitmontop shows up. I just don't think it's not. I don't think it's a bad into my team this week. I just don't think he has the room for it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our first mon, which of course, Chipotle the Iron Boulder, who has been fantastic for us, so far. Only one game, but he was pretty solid for us. With the Expert Belt this week, we are Terra Fire, with Mighty Cleave, Zen Headbutt, Earthquake, and Close Combat. We are rocking 252 attack, 4 defense, 4 special defense, 248 speed, and a Jolly Nature. Now, the speed is for basically everything his entire team barring Scarfers. We outspeed the Iron Valiant, unless it's like a booster speed variant, which is entirely possible. We are Terra Fire because I don't want to get burned by Skeledirge, and I think that if we Terra Fire, this is actually a pretty decent check to Skeledirge. I'm not bringing Sword Stance booster speed because of Skeledirge, and I think it really does show up. And I don't want to be able to basically not use a move until that thing is gone. Next up, we are bringing Zarude, Burger King the Zarude this week, with the Covert Cloak, Knockoff, Power Up, Bulk Up, and Synthesis, with 236 HP, 48 attack, 224 speed, and a Jolly Nature. With this investment, we are outpacing the Sandy Shocks and below, and then with the HP investment, we guaranteed to take 2 Ice Beams from Vaporeon from full, and we also guaranteed 2-hit KO Fizz Def Vaporeon with Power Whip after a Bulk Up. I know it's like a very specific thing that we're bringing this week, but I think, honestly, if I'm going to be able to set up on anything this week, it is going to be that Vaporeon, quite frankly. And honestly, if I can get 1 or 2 bulk ups on his team against that thing, I think we could actually just put in a ton of work, especially if that Muck is weakened or gone. But yeah, I think Zarude can put in a ton of work this week if we put it in the right position. Next up, we are bringing Hardy's, our Ursaluna Blood Moon this week, with the Assault Vest, Blood Moon, Earth Power, Hyper Voice, and Trailblaze, 252 HP, 4 defense, 252 special attack, and a Quiet Nature. Now, you might be wondering why I'm bringing Trailblaze alongside a Quiet Natured Mon. That'll become more into play a little bit later. I don't want to spoil it quite yet. But with the Trailblaze, we will be able to outpace a non-invested Metagross after a Trailblaze, And then Earth Power obviously just puts in a shitload of work. Dual Stab this week puts in a ton of work. There is really nothing that wants to switch into that pairing, no matter what it is. And Earth Power is just super free into basically everything, not named like Noivern or Abalava and Scyther, whereas, you know, Blood Moon and Hyper Voice are going to send those motherfuckers packing. And also, obviously, depending on the Terra type, the Skelders could take those hits pretty well. But yeah, I think this is a very solid bring for us this week. This is also a decent check to Sandy Shocks, and a little bit of a check to the Arbalava, depending on the Terra type. Not more so for the Sandy Shocks than the Arbalava, but yeah, this thing can absolutely put in a ton of work this week. Next week, we are bringing Latios with the Roselli Berry this week, with Mist Ball, Dragon Pulse, Reflect type, and Recover. We were toying around with a few different sets this week. With our investment, we are actually speed tying with the Lycanroc. We actually toyed around with a Choice Spec set at one point, but we felt like the Reflect type, because we feel like a Alolan Muck is very, very common and very likely to show up this week, we felt like being able to change, Reflect that typing, become Poison Dark with the Levitate ability, have no weaknesses at that point, and then be able to just dual stab our way through most of this team outside of like the Metagross, of course. Even though our investment we don't have a whole lot of investment this week, we are more of an HP set. We actually take less than half from a Moonblast from the Valiant, which I think is likely the set that he brings this week. But yeah, I do believe that Latios is going to put in a little bit of work this week, especially if we can get rid of the Metagross, but we'll see. We will see. Next up, we are bringing Wendy's the Diancie this week with the Babiri Berry, Stealth Rock, Diamond Sword, Moonblast, and Trick Room. We are max physical defense with a little bit of special attack and a relaxed nature. Now, this right here is why we have the set on Ursaluna that we do, because Ursaluna this week can put in a ton of work and potentially just win us the game from frame 1. Not from frame 1, but it can potentially win us the game pretty easily if we position it correctly. Now, with the Trick Room, the Ursaluna will underpace everything, and therefore outspeed in Trick Room. And on top of that, if we can get a Trailblaze up after Trick Room is gone, or maybe on the last turn that Trick Room is up, then we can start putting in a little bit of work with that as well. But yeah, Stealth Rocks are pretty easy to get up this week. I think we can get Stealth Rocks up on basically everything, even the Metagross, because of the fact that we have the Babiri Berry. We can do that if need be. Moonblast and Diamond Storm is covered for most things, barring the Metagross. Now, I know that I'm kind of not bringing a whole lot for the Metagross on a couple of Mons, but I think our team actually deals with Metagross pretty well. We have a lot of Mons on our team that deal with it pretty easily, namely like the Zarude. Boulder can kind of put in a little bit of pressure on it with Earthquake. And then our last one can put a little bit of pressure on it as well as the Ursaluna. But yeah, Diancie this week, I think getting Trick Room up can be something that puts us in a winning position. But we will definitely have to see what 6 he brings. And last but not least, that Mon that is going to help us break through that Metagross, we have Taco Bell, the Drifblim. With the Citrus Berry and the Unburden ability, we are the Fairy Terra. This week, Shadow Ball, Terra Blast, Strength Sap, and Calm Mind. We are max HP, 44, special attack is 216 speed, and a timid nature. With this speed, we are outpacing a booster speed Valiant after the Unburden boost, if I remember correctly. With Shadow Ball and Terra Blast, we hit basically everything on the team for super effective or neutral damage. And honestly, I don't see a way. I think this can easily just put in a ton of pressure this week and potentially win us the game. Drifblim is very, very good for us this week, even though he has a Skeldurge, and I do expect it to come. Shadow Ball is going to do a ton to it, and depending on his type, we can easily just put in a ton of pressure on it. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for my team builder this week, and I will see you guys in the game tomorrow. Peace out.